Hello, my dear children. Namaste and welcome to yet another super interesting, super useful session, specially for our Revise for Vote workshop. This is Ambika, your biology master teacher, right here on the super amazing platform. Well, guys, hope your preparation is all going on absolutely well for your board exams, for vote, and for everything else. And vote, I guess, don't take too much of stress. We are here anyway to give you all the necessary guidelines and all the kind of guidance that we possibly can give you. And the rest of it, yes, it's after all there not to compete with others, right? It's for you to know where you stand right now. So don't stress over it too much, but to make things a little easier for you, we are coming up with all these revise for vote workshops and things like that. So today we are going to be discussing a few topics from the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce, CBSE Class 10. All right. So now talking about vote. Remember, what is vote? Vedantu Online Talent Exam happening on 4 Sundays from the 28th of March till the 18th of April. And remember, this is not just any other exam. It's got to be a comeback, a major comeback. It has to be a turning point in your studies, which is going to be a turning point in your life as a whole. So I think here is an introduction about myself. I think my YouTube following children would all know this quite well. But anyway, it's just out here because we put this in all the revise for vote workshops. So children, my name is Ambika, as I've told you, and I'm one of the biology master teachers here at Vedantu, and I'm from the state of Kerala, as you perhaps may already know. And I did my master's, my MSc in marine biology from Cochin University of Science and Technology. And for the last 8 years, I've been working in the field of education, and most of my experience, that's a 6+ years of my experience, have been in the field of teaching and ed tech together. And yes, that's about it. And here we go. What are we going to be discussing today? Yes, children, asexual reproduction. The modes of asexual reproduction, which are budding and fission, fragmentation and regeneration, spore formation, and vegetative propagation, the major ones. Then we'll also talk about sexual reproduction in both plants and in animals. All right. Okay. Now, before we move on to the contents, children, I want the answer to this question from all of you. Where are you from? Which part of our country or which part of the world are you from? Well, I said world because we do have a lot of students who keep following us on Vedantu from the Middle East countries, from the Gulf countries, and various other countries where there are CBSE and ICSE schools as well. So, children, I would love to see that whenever this session is getting premiered. Okay, right. Now tell me this. Think about it for yourself. Was 2020 a setback to your learning? Well, I suppose it was a setback for everyone in whatever they've been doing. And not to worry at all. As far as your learning is concerned, I have pledged for your comeback, and your comeback moment starts right now. Right, children? So let us stay on with full josh and full energy and with full of positivity. Remember, Vedantu Online Talent Exam is going to be happening on 4 Sundays, 28th of March, 4th of April, 11th of April, and the 18th of April. You can either take the test on one of these dates or more than one of these dates. If you want 2, 3, or all of these dates, that's also completely fine. And the best thing is, you are free for it because it is absolutely free of any fee. Right? Now, remember, children, these are the dates, and the time will be 3 p.m. Okay. Now, the top features of vote is what are mentioned here. In-depth performance analysis with an all-India rank. Isn't that amazing? You would know where you stand. I'll tell you what in-depth performance analysis would mean, but hold on for a bit. Guaranteed scholarship from a pool of over 500 crore rupees. Can you imagine? And apart from all these 4 Sundays, there are also going to be daily challenges to win exciting prizes worth rupees 1 crore. And the last one is probably the most exciting one. You get to be the CEO of Vedantu for one day. And as a result, you get to contribute your ideas to the future of our country's education. Isn't that awesome? And you also get to win a trip, a free trip to NASA. So, children, in-depth performance analysis would mean this. You get an All India rank. Your subject-wise analysis will also be given to you as a report. State-wise rank would also be given, so you know where you stand, exactly where you stand. The idea is not to get demotivated by seeing how many people are above you, but rather to understand for yourself where you stand, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where can you improve to do your best this year to come back into your real life learning process. Then, question level analysis is also going to be a part of this. Now, you stand a chance to win an all expenses paid educational trip to NASA in the United States of America. You get to win exciting prizes and gadgets. Wow. Name it and it's there. So many of them drones, telescopes, laptops, ranging from these to so many more by taking up daily challenges and not just the 4 Sundays. And as I told you, you get to become the CEO of Vedantu for one day. Isn't that amazing? Yes, children, so I'll tell you more about it a little while later. Let's take a break from that and let us focus on our contents for the revision workshop. Yes, what is that? Reproduction and its types. We know that the production of offspring is what reproduction is. Now, this can occur either by a sexual process or by an asexual process, right? Asexual reproduction would be that in which just one parent is involved. And sexual reproduction would be that in which two parents are involved, usually both producing different kinds of gametes. For example, the ova in the females and the sperm in the males. These are the differences between asexual and sexual reproduction. Nonetheless, both of them are methods of producing offspring, continuing generations. Now, let's look at the types of asexual reproduction. Now, children, those of you who want to revise this topic for your board exams as well, this is going to help you even in that. Okay, of course, we've got a lot of videos for board exam specific preparation, but even then, this is going to serve both the purposes for vote as well as for your board exams. All right, now budding, the first one. What is budding? Well, when you think of the word bud, what comes to your mind? To me, when I think of the word bud, there are two things. I've said this in some of my classes earlier as well. One is a flower bud. Okay. The second one is the cotton ear bud, the cotton bud that we use to clean our outer ear, right? So these are the two things that come to my mind. So in the process of budding, what happens is a group of cells from the parent organism, it just grows and grows and grows. It just continuously divides to form a structure called the bud. And that bud looks like a miniature baby, right? A miniature version of the parent organism, but still attached to the parent. And once it is completely grown, as you can see, it can grow and grow and grow. Ultimately, it reaches a point where it can be capable of becoming independent. It detaches from the parent organism and grows into an independent individual. Hydra is a very, very good example of budding. So this organism which you see here is Hydra. Right, children? This is Hydra, which is an animal belonging to the phylum Cnidaria. This one, what is this? It's a fungus. We call it yeast. Yeast is also a very good example of budding. Look at how beautifully it's happening, right? Formation of the bud, cytoplasm divides, and ultimately you see a chain of yeast cells being formed. So examples of both unicellular as well as multicellular organisms that reproduce by budding. Right? Now, also remember, children, one thing, let me tell you before I forget, Hydra can also regenerate just in case it loses any of its body parts like its tentacle or something by some accidental means. It has the ability to regenerate. All right? Typically, it reproduces by budding, but it has the ability to regenerate as well. Okay? Next one, fragmentation. Now, the word fragment, what does that mean? Fragment in English, literally it means a piece, right? A piece of something, a piece of chocolate, a piece of stone, a piece of something. Okay. So fragmentation is the kind of reproduction wherein some organisms like blue-green algae, like Spirogyra, what they do is they keep growing, and once they become a completely developed individual organism, their next goal is to reproduce. So what do? They just deliberately break up into different fragments. Each fragment grows into an independent organism. Isn't that amazing? Thankfully, nature did not give us human beings that ability, because imagine the number of crimes that we would have committed. My goodness, nature always has a smart plan for everything, right? So, this is about fragmentation. Spirogyra is a very good example. Then comes a very, very closely related term, which is regeneration. Now we are done with these two. We are on regeneration right now, which you see in organisms like planaria. Planaria belongs to the animal kingdom, to phylum Platyhelminthus. It's a flatworm. Now, what it does is it has the ability to regenerate, right? In some books, you might see that planaria is given as an example for fragmentation, but it is also an example for regeneration. Whatever is given in your NCRT, go ahead and follow that when it's for your board exams, right, children? But the word regeneration, what does it mean? Of course, as you can see, it's breaking up into fragments, and each fragment is becoming a fully developed individual. But it's different from fragmentation in the sense that regeneration, the ultimate goal of regeneration is not usually to reproduce. Sometimes what happens is, when because of an underlying disease in our body as well, the liver may get degenerated. Liver is one of the major detoxification organs in our body, right? So it can happen that because of certain diseases, the liver gets degenerated. But liver is a magical organ in the sense that it has the ability to regenerate. Even if there is a little bit of tissue of the liver left, it can grow into a full liver gradually. So it can regenerate, reforming something, right? That is regeneration. Likewise, the lizard tail, the tail of a lizard. You might have seen tailless lizards. It's not like they were born like that. They might have lost it because of some accidental means. So they have the ability to regenerate the lost tail within a few weeks. This process, in the case of some lower organisms like planaria and starfish and even hydra, may end up becoming a method of reproduction wherein, by some accidental process, if an organism gets broken down, each part can develop into a full organism. So see, there's a very, very thin line of difference. I'll write the other examples. Starfish is also an example. Hydra is also an example. Okay, so in regeneration and fragmentation, the major difference is that in regeneration, because of some accidental means, the organism breaks up and each part can regenerate itself into the full organism. So ultimately, the end result is going to be, because different parts, each of these parts could grow into an adult organism, it ended up producing more copies of the parent organism. So by accident, it ended up being able to reproduce through this process. But in fragmentation, its ultimate goal itself was to reproduce. It's breaking up with the intention of reproduction. That's the major difference. All right. Yes. Now comes, yes, the difference between the two summarized here. You can have a look at it. The notes will be given down, or take a screenshot of this. So it's available for you. All right. Difference between fragmentation and regeneration in a tabular form. Right, children? Yes. Now coming to the next one, which is fission. Literally, the word fission should remind you of some kind of a splitting up. Now, certain organisms, certain microorganisms have the ability to split up into two or more independent cells. This is what we call fission. In case the parent organism splits up into two daughter cells, we call it binary fission. Binary fission, because bi means two. So amoeba is a very good example for this. Amoeba, wherein binary fission is very, very common, right? It's a unicellular eukaryote. Then the malarial parasite, which is Plasmodium. It's a very, very good example for multiple fission, wherein from one individual cell, inside, as you can see, inside the cell, the nucleus is dividing into multiple daughter nuclei. Ultimately, eventually what happens is, the outer covering of the cell breaks open, and with a little bit of cytoplasm, every nucleus just goes out to become an independent organism. Plasmodium is a very good example, and so is amoeba. Amoeba, under unfavorable conditions, reproduces by multiple fission. Right, children? So this is about fission, binary and multiple. Now comes spore formation. You would have observed all those fungal spores, mold and bread mold and all of those fungal spores which can easily spread around the fungi in stale food and rotting food and all of that. That is because fungi can reproduce very fast by forming spores. Right? So bread mold is a very, very good example for this. This is how they form spores. They form a plant-like structure, but it's not a plant, of course, it's a fungus. But this is how structurally they would look like, stolon, and they've got spores, sporangium and sporangiophore and all of those. They can release spores, and those spores can develop into newer fungal individuals. This is how fungus easily spreads around rotting and stale organic material. Okay? So this is spore formation. Then comes vegetative propagation, wherein the vegetative parts of a plant body, what does that mean? Vegetative parts. What would those be? Like the stem, the roots, and the leaves. These are all examples of vegetative parts of the plant body, which means they are parts which are usually non-reproductive. They have their own independent functions. They are usually non-reproductive. But in this method of reproduction, these parts can give rise to new individuals. This is what vegetative propagation would mean. It can occur either naturally or artificially. Artificial would be like grafting, cutting, layering, and all of those techniques. Right, children? Now, quickly answer this question for me. One of the following organisms does not reproduce by budding. Which of them is that? Now, I'll give you a hint, as in I'll tell you what each of those organisms are. A, this is A, it's a sponge. Okay. B is hydra. C is yeast. And D is planaria. Tell me which of these would not reproduce by budding. Yes, children? Your time is up. Okay. The answer is planaria. D is the answer. Planaria majorly reproduces by regeneration, right? It doesn't undergo budding, but the other three do. Next, organisms which reproduce by fragmentation. What are they? Corals and sponge, corals and spirogyra, sea anemone and spirogyra, sponges and sea anemone. What would the answer be? Reproducing by fragmentation. Yes, start with what you know. Yes, and your time ends in 3, 2, 1, and go. The answer is sea anemone and spirogyra. Spirogyra is something I've already told you about. So between B and C, you could have been confused. Corals and sea anemone, both of them belong to phylum Cnidaria. But sea anemone is the one which can reproduce by fragmentation and not the corals. Okay, next. While reading a book on fascinating natural facts, Arya comes across the term asexual reproduction and saw spirogyra and planaria as examples. Okay, what type of asexual reproduction would these two organisms be an example for? Fragmentation and regeneration, budding and vegetative propagation, spore formation and fission, unisexual and bisexual. What could it be? Yes, children? And your time ends in 3, 2, 1, go. Very, very simple, right? Spirogyra and planaria. Spirogyra is a good example for fragmentation, planaria for regeneration. Good job. So there comes the next one. The two organisms which can regenerate fully from their cut body parts. What are they? Paramecium and hydra, hydra and amoeba, planaria and leishmania, hydra and planaria. Okay. This has to be simple because I've told you the answer to this. If you've paid attention, you will know the answer. Your time ends in 3, 2, 1, and go. Hydra and planaria have the ability to regenerate. In all the other options, at least one of those terms don't undergo regeneration. Right? Okay. Now, spore formation is a common method of asexual reproduction in which of these? Protozoa, tubers, fungi, or algae? Spore formation. And I can't give you any further time. Your time is up. The answer has to be fungi. Remember the bread mold. Okay. Children, now let's take a very, very quick break talking about V.O.T.E, right? Because we are preparing really, really well for the V.O.T.E exam. So it's important for you to be aware about the exam format. So for your level, for your grade, you will be having two tests, which means two sections: mental aptitude test or MAT and scholastic aptitude test, which is SAT. Which means scholastic aptitude will be the one which includes your subjects, science and other subjects which come under that. The total number of questions would be 70. This is going to be the marking scheme. Be careful. Plus 4 marks for every correct answer, minus 1 mark for every wrong answer. Exam duration is going to be 75 minutes. Okay? This is it. And now tell me, are you excited to make a comeback? I am definitely excited to see how it's going to help you all. I know it will definitely help you all assess yourselves. So I am super excited, just like any of us in the Vedantu team. What about you all? Are you excited? Yes? Click on the like button right now if you are excited about V.O.T.E, right? Okay, now continuing further. Multiple fission occurs in one of the following. Which of them? Bread mold, Kala Azar parasite, flatworm, or malarial parasite? Multiple fission. Your time is up. Multiple fission, malarial parasite, of course, plasmodium. Plasmodium, right? This is how malarial parasite commonly reproduces multiple fission. Now, let us recall, sorry, quickly whatever we've discussed until now. Methods of asexual reproduction, including budding, spore formation, look at their respective examples as well, vegetative propagation, and then the different modes of asexual reproduction like binary fission. Yes, the different subtypes of binary fission like longitudinal and transverse are also mentioned here. Remember, children, I have not told you this in today's session, but longitudinal binary fission would mean this way. Division of an organism this way, longitudinally. Transverse binary fission would mean an organism breaks up this way, transversely, horizontally. Okay? Right. And then, of course, fragmentation and regeneration and multiple fission as well. Right. Now, let us talk about sexual reproduction in plants. In the case of plants, flowers are the sexually reproductive part. The beautiful hibiscus flowers in nature, which occurs so commonly across gardens in our country, India, they are the perfect example to study the parts of a flower. Okay, children? So these are the parts which you can see: receptacle. Let's start with the reproductive parts. The male parts, which are the stamen, comprised of the anther and the filament. Okay, so this is the anther and this part is the filament. The anther would be the one which produces pollen grains. Filament is there for filamentous support. Carpel, also called the pistil. This would be the female part of the flower, and that is comprised of 3 regions. Stigma, this is the stigma, this long part is the style, and the bottom swollen part is the ovary. Within the ovary would be ovules. All right? Yes. Now, once again, for your understanding, stamen and the pistil are specifically mentioned here for you. All right? Stamen comprised of anthers and filaments. Pistil or the carpel comprised of stigma, style, and ovary. Within the ovary would be the ovules. Okay? Children, one major thing the children get confused with is anther and stamen. Remember, the full structure is called the stamen. This part alone is called the anther. This is the part which produces pollen grains. And in a pollen grain, what do you find? Within a pollen grain, you would find 2 sperm cells, 2 sperm nuclei. All right? Fine. Now coming to pollination. The process by which pollen grains from the anther of a flower are transferred to the stigma of a flower. This is called pollination. So this can occur between the same plant or two different plants, same flower or two different flowers actually, right? So we give them different names. As you can see here, when pollination occurs from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower, we call it self-pollination, this yellow color coding, right? Sometimes it happens that pollen grain from the anther get transferred to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. That is also a method of self-pollination. But there are different names that we give to those. But for the time being, you can just understand it this way. Then, sometimes it happens between two completely different plant bodies, pollen grain transfer can occur. That is what we call cross pollination, wherein pollinating agents like water, wind, insects, birds, all of those would be involved, right? Now, coming to the next part, colorful part of the flower which attracts insects. What is it? Petals, sepals, pedicel, none of these. Your time's up, and the answer is petals, the colorful part. Who has a doubt in this, right? Next one. Which of these is not a female reproductive part? Ovary, stigma, filament, style. Not a female reproductive part. Okay. And your time is up. Filament, because stigma, style, and ovary are part of the female carpel or the pistil, whereas filament is what you find helping attach the anther, right? Okay. After fertilization, the ovary develops into dash, seed, fruit, both A and B, none of these. After fertilization. I haven't told you this in today's session, but think about it. Your time ends in 3, 2, 1, and go. The answer is fruit. The ovule develops into seeds and ovaries develop into fruits. So here is a summary of all that we've discussed right now. Sexual reproduction is seen in plants and in animals. In the plants, flower is the main reproductive part. Anther and filament making up the stamen. Stigma, style, and ovary making up the pistil. So this is the male and this is the female. Gametes, what would they be? Anther produces pollen grain, which contains the male gametes. Ovaries would produce the egg cell, which is the female gamete. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grain to stigma through various means. And after this, there would be double fertilization. So actually what happens in double fertilization is, children, within the ovule, as you know, within the ovule, there would be an egg cell, two synergid cells, there would be polar nuclei, and there would be antipodal cells as well, right? Now I told you, if you remember, one pollen grain includes two sperm nuclei, two sperms, okay? Now, one of these sperms, sperm 1, fuses with the ovum or the egg cell here, okay? So this would result in the zygote. This is the main part of fertilization. What about sperm 2? What does that do? Sperm 2 fuses with the polar nuclei to form what we call the triploid endosperm. And that is important in nourishing the growing embryo. Since two sperm cells are involved, one which fuses with the ovum, the other fusing with the polar nuclei, we call it double fertilization. And following double fertilization, the male gamete, the ovary becomes the fruit, the ovule becomes the seeds. As simple as that, right? Now, children who joined me late, I'm sure you might want to know more about V.O.T.E in case you're not aware of this. Wait till the end of the class. I'll tell you more about it. Or you can also download Vedantu's learning app from Google Play. You can also visit the website. The link is also given in the description box below. The Telegram link is also given here, children, so that you don't miss out on any of the updated information on V.O.T.E. Right. Now, what about human beings? Sexual reproduction in human beings. The male reproductive system includes these parts, starting with the testes. Now, the testes produce the male gamete sperms and the hormone testosterone, right? Then, The next part is the sperms produced by the testes would be temporarily stored in a structure called epididymis. Okay. Now, following maturation in the epididymis, mature sperms would be released. Where do they get released? They pass through the tubular structure called vas deferens. Through the vas deferens, the sperm just travel and travel and travel, and they can exit the male body through the copulatory structure, which is the penis. But on the way through the vas deferens, the sperm would meet a lot of other secretions, accessory secretions, right? Fluidy secretions, which are produced by the seminal vesicle, by the prostate gland, and all of these structures, which add a lot of fluidity and nourishment to the sperms. So, sperm and the accessory secretions together, we call it semen. Okay, and this semen, which is sort of semi-fluidy in texture, would move out of the male body through the penis, right? So semen is what contains the male gametes, sperms. All right. So yes, this is about it. And also remember the urethra, right? The urethra is a tubular passage which passes within the penis. Urethra in males, in human males, would be a common passage for both sperms and urine. Okay, so they join together. The vas deferens and the ureter together meet at the urethra, and there is a common aperture for both of these. Right. Now, what about the females? These are the female parts, starting with the ovaries, which produce the female gametes, which are the eggs, right? And then the fallopian tube, which is the site of fertilization. And then, of course, within this, you can see the structure called the uterus or the womb, as it's commonly called. And then comes the tiny opening called the cervix, which opens out into a passage called the vagina or the birth canal, right? So these are the different parts of the female reproductive system. I'll just mention it here, the major parts: the ovaries. Okay, ovaries are a pair, and then the oviducts or the fallopian tubes, or the fallopian tubes. Then comes the uterus, right? Then comes the cervix, and then comes the vagina. These are the major parts. Now, the uterus, as you can see, is lined by very, very thick muscular walls, endometrial layer, the myometrial layer, and all of those. And it's the breakdown of the endometrial layer every month in a female that results in menstruation. Okay, so these are things that you need to know here. And remember, the oviduct or the fallopian tube is the site where the sperm would meet the ovum. In case a sexual act has occurred, sperms would be released into the female reproductive tract, and the sperm would meet the ovum, resulting in the formation of a zygote. Right? So this is how human reproduction occurs. Now, time for some questions. One of these options is a part of the male reproductive organ. The other is a part of a female reproductive organ, as in one of these options contains two terms, and out of those two terms, one term is part of the male reproductive structure system. The other part is part of the female reproductive system. Identify that option: A, B, C, or D. Yes, A, B, C, or D. What would it be? Your time is up. Of course, it has to be C. Vas deferens and the fallopian tube. Vas deferens in males, fallopian tube in females. Now, the gametes produced by male contain which of these sex chromosomes? X and Y, X and X, only Y, or only X? Yes, children? Okay, that is super easy, so I'm not giving you any more time. Your time is up. X and Y, of course. Half of the sperms contain the X chromosome, the other half would contain the Y chromosome. What about the gametes of female? Egg cells would always contain only the X chromosome. Okay, gamete which is larger in size. Let's see how many of you answer this. Sperm, ovum, both are the same, or none of these? Yes, larger in size. Your time is up. Remember, it's the ovum. The ovum is much bigger in size as compared to the sperm, and millions of sperm compete with each other to fertilize that one egg cell. Yes, children? Yes. So ovum is relatively larger in size. Not relatively, actually much bigger in size. Now, let us quickly summarize sexual reproduction in humans. We have spoken about the male system, wherein there are the testes, right? Followed by the epididymis, and then the vas deferens. We've also seen structures like the prostate gland, and the seminal vesicle, right? Both of these are accessory reproductive structures. And of course, the the urethra, into which the ureter and the vas deferens would join together to pass on their respective secretions, and the penis. These are the terms that we've discussed. And as far as the female reproductive system is concerned, we have spoken about the ovaries, the oviducts or the fallopian tubes, the uterus, which is lined by endometrium and myometrium, and then, of course, the cervix, followed by the birth canal or the vagina. So these are what we have discussed in sexual reproduction in humans. So that is about it. Now, children, are you all set to make a comeback? Yes, register for V.O.T.E right now. That has to be on top of your list. Okay. Now, children, you can download Vedantu's live learning app right now, or you can also visit the website vedantu.com/vote, because it's going to help you a lot, and you need to register yourselves through either one of these. So how do you register? How do you vote? You register yourself by giving your details. Children, make sure this is a very, very important step. Make sure you enter in your correct details. Okay. So your name, the grade in which you are, the board, CBSE, ICSE, state board, whichever it may be, your target exam, CBSE 2021 or ICSE 2021, whatever it may be that you are aiming at, because remember, children, for every board and for every grade, the exam is going to be different. Okay, right. This is why that's a crucial step. Once you are done with this, yay, your voter ID card is absolutely ready. Using your voter ID card, you can now follow the next steps. What are they? Pick your vote days. I told you it's happening on 4 dates: 28th of March, 4th of April, 11th and 18th of April. You can either pick one of these dates or all of these dates. That's completely your choice. So pick the dates on which you want to give the test, and you will be done. That's it. Now, as I told you, apart from all these 4 Sundays, there are also going to be daily and weekly challenges, giving you a lot of exciting prizes. Right, children? Including all of these and a lot more. Now, another interesting thing about V.O.T.E is creating squads, your gang or your squad. Remember, you can create squads and win big, and this is going to be super amazing. So once you register and once you check out the details on the website, children, you will be able to understand how you can create your squads and how it's going to be interesting and exciting for you, and all of those, how to win big with squads. Everything is given here. You can create or join a squad. You can solve weekly challenges. So you are like having a lot of fun doing this with your own gang of people, right? And you can earn additional V coins. You can win exciting prizes every day. You can create a squad logo, a squad slogan as well. Yes, children, so many interesting things. So that's about it from my side. All the best. Do your best, and may good things be showered upon you. And I will see you in yet another amazing session. Until that, remember to stay happy and stay healthy. Bye bye.